Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name's Kory. This is episode 3 of Project Joy, and today we're going to be talking about graduation. I am so excited to talk about graduation just because graduation, specifically college graduation, was a huge time of transition for me, and it was a really scary time, but it was also really exciting. And yeah, I think that I'm just super passionate about that time of life being like a really big period of transition, and I get really excited talking to people who are coming up on graduation or who have just graduated because I feel like it's a time where like not a lot of people really talk about what happens next, because during college or even during high school, a lot of times you have teachers or professors, you have counselors, you have friends that you're likely living with or at least living near, and like you have all of these people that are just kind of automatically a support system for you, either because they're school staff or because they're fellow students like you, so they're going through all the same stuff. And then you graduate from school, and a lot of times you do stay in touch with your friends, but especially after college, a lot of people move to different cities, and everything kind of happens for different people at different times. So maybe some people like have a job straight out of college, other people might go to like working an hourly job after college, or working something part-time. Some people might be going into a different degree program and moving for that. So it's like everybody just kind of spreads all over a lot of times, and then also you don't really have access to the same resources anymore because you're not in the school community. So even if your school has like an alumni network and alumni resources, it's not really the same as being like on campus every day in class and learning from people and like feeling like you can just kind of go to office hours or go and talk to somebody who's going to be able to advise you on next steps. So I remember this time, I graduated 2 years ago, and I remember this time just being like so exciting and so thrilling, but also so terrifying because it just felt like there were all of these expectations of people kind of being like, what's next? Like, what are you doing? Like, okay, like, what's your life plan? Kind of a thing. And I had no idea. And so I just remember like pretending as hard as I could, like, I just had it all together, just trying to make it through that period of time and just trying to like not let other people's judgments or questions like influence what I was doing with my life. But it was hard, and there were a lot of things that I wish somebody had just said to me like right away after graduation. So I'm going to talk about a few of those things today, and then I also am going to cover your guys' questions that you submitted. I've got a few of those, so I'm excited to cover graduation details. Really quickly, if you guys are curious about the change of venue, I did not move again, but I'm house sitting for my lovely dear friend, so I get to stay in her beautiful home this week. So her lighting is like totally on point. Just I'm really like feeling this window shot. So anyways, okay, let's get started. I want to cover your guys' questions first. Thank you to everybody who submitted questions. You guys are awesome. It's so much fun to have interaction on this platform and to have your guys' questions to answer. So the very first question that I got was about resumes. So obviously a resume becomes like even more important than it may have been to you in college now that you are out of school, and this applies for like high school too. If you have decided to maybe not go to school or take a gap year or whatever your choices are, resumes are crucial. So I would say the number one thing that I got taught about resumes after college that I wish someone had told me is to just make a master copy of your resume and to not worry about like formatting it or fitting it all into a certain number of pages right away, because it's really, really difficult. And also don't worry if you don't have like a lot of stuff to put on your resume right away either. I would say just do kind of like a resume free writing exercise. Just sit down and write out everything that you can think of that would be applicable to a job, and like with no specific job in mind. Don't try to immediately write your first resume as like, this is my resume for my dream job. Like that's going to feel really overwhelming and really scary. So just write down like any work experience you have, how much education you have, write down volunteer activities that you've done, write down if you've ever like organized an event that looks really great on a resume, just like all those kinds of things. Just like list those out, and then maybe make another list of like what your strengths are. So that can be like personality traits. Maybe you're really good at customer service because you're really patient and you really enjoy communicating with people. Maybe you have an eye for numbers and you're really good at spotting financial errors, or maybe you just really like to like research things, like all that kind of stuff. Just kind of try to like encapsulate yourself as a working person in a document. Just put it all on paper and then save that master draft. And that master draft will change a lot over time, obviously. Like, for example, when I first graduated from high school, I literally could barely fill up my resume, like, with bullet points. Like, I just did not have a lot to put on it. And now my master draft of my resume has, I think, 5 or 6 pages, including my references. But again, that's including, like, work experience as well as, like, things that I consider to be my skill set, strengths that I have, things that I enjoy doing, et cetera, et cetera. So just create that master draft, and then you can use that as a resource for years to come, because what makes it so much easier is that then, let's say that you're somebody who really wants to go into marketing. So maybe you're applying for one job that is a social media specialist, and you're applying for another job that's more of a like content creator, and it's more specific to like writing blog content and things like that. What you can do is you can create 2 different resumes. So you could create one for the social media position that is focused more on your skills of social media and like briefly covers your writing skills, whereas the other resume that is for the content creation job is going to include a lot more detail about previous content creation that you've done, your writing skills, your editing skills, etc. And you can just copy and paste each little thing off of your master draft. And then also it's nice because then when you go through to edit your resumes, like maybe your resume winds up being 3 pages long because you're writing a novel to the owner of this company because you've wanted to work for them since you were 12. That's awesome, but that business owner does not want to read your 3-page resume, as cool as you might be. So it makes it really easy to go back through and edit your resume because you know that that stuff is already saved in your master draft. So like if you delete a few of your skills that you've listed, you don't have to worry about forgetting to include those skills on a different resume. You just have them saved somewhere already. So tip number 1, definitely create your master draft. The master draft holds all of the resume power. And then my advice point number 2, which I kind of just touched on, is that any article that you read about resume writing is going to talk about how you really need to tailor and customize your resume to the specific job that you're applying for. And I disregarded that for a long time, and I would like kind of do it, but I didn't put a lot of effort into doing that, especially after you've applied for like 15 jobs in a day. It feels really exhausting to go in and make yet another draft of your resume, but honestly, it pays off. I have not yet been in a position where I'm in charge of like hiring people, obviously, but I have sat in on interviews and then listened to like the manager's feedback afterwards and heard what they had to say about candidates or their resumes, and like comparing them to the job description, like how good of a fit they thought they were going to be. And managers really do look at whether or not you've obviously looked at the bullet points of the job description, and they do kind of go through and just skim and try to see like how many of those bullet points on their job description actually match what's on your resume, which isn't to say that you should like make up stuff on your resume, because I've seen people get caught for that and it's really not pretty, so don't do that. But even just like, let's say there's a job description that says that they want you to have really great customer service skills, and you haven't had a job yet where you did customer service, but you volunteered with kids in high school. That can totally be one of your bullet points, is like that you exhibit great customer service ability because you have experience working with kids and helping them problem solve during times of frustration. You know, that shows that like you have an applicable skill and that you've actually read the job description, even if you can't necessarily say that you have an example of that specific skill in a job setting yet. So I hope that makes sense. So those are my top 2 resume tips. Master draft, and also take the time to create customized resumes because it's really going to get you noticed. And also just keep resumes short and sweet because, like I said, managers really do just skim through. A lot of times they get hundreds and hundreds of applications, and so their job is literally just to sit and skim through and pick the top however many people they have time to interview. So if you make your resume overly wordy, or if it's like 3 pages long or anything like that, chances are they're not going to read it. They just don't have the time. So those are my top 3 tips, I guess. And also, I'll just add a caveat to this, which is that I love to edit resumes. I think it's really, really fun. So if any of you guys out there have resumes that you're struggling with, or you want feedback on them, etc., please feel free to email them to me. I'll include my email in the description down below. But yeah, I would be happy to look at your resume and just give you my feedback. Obviously, I'm not a resume expert. I'm going to just color that with this. My experience is just, getting to hear the feedback from managers while they're hiring people, and then also just my experience with creating resumes that actually get attention when I've been applying for jobs. So yeah. Also, I was an English major, so I have that going for me where, like, I can definitely help you with grammar and spelling and all that kind of stuff, or, like, wording things. One of my biggest pet peeves is when people send in resumes that use the same word over and over, like, every bullet point includes the word managed. And I'm like, okay, we get it, you manage things, great, like, come up with a different vocabulary word. But like I said, that doesn't really matter because I'm not a manager, so nobody has to impress me. But you never know. Maybe one of your future managers will have been an English major. Maybe they'll really value word choice. So send me your resume is the moral of that story. Okay, topic number 2. The second question that I got was not really a question, but an expression of a fear that even with a college degree, people won't pay you to do the work that you want to do. I have good news and I have bad news around that anxiety. The good news is people will pay you to do the work that you want to do. The bad news is people don't automatically pay you to do the work that you want to do just because you got a degree in something. And that was a huge slap in the face to me. Like, I didn't really realize the scale at which you're still expected to prove your worth and your ability in a position before you can really move beyond an entry-level position. Because pretty much any job that I've gone into post-college, and if you guys have watched my videos before, you know that I've started multiple jobs and left them in my years since college. So I have some experience with getting hired into the entry-level positions, and it was hard for me to swallow that people were not going to just look at my resume and see that I had a bachelor's degree and, like, wave me in and just, like, skip me past the piece where I got to pay my dues at the company kind of a thing. I don't know if that's really other people's expectation. Maybe other people are more realistic about that, but I really wasn't. I really thought that in getting my degree, that was me paying my dues and proving that I could stick with something for 4 whole years, and proved that I had organizational ability, proved that I had ability in the thing that I was studying. So for me, that was English, etc., etc. So I thought that I was just going to, like, graduate from college and maybe, like, do a couple internships after college and then apply to my favorite publishing company and immediately get a job as a book editor. That was not the reality of my life. So, to kind of put your fear to rest, I would say that degrees are valuable. Like, as soon as you start applying for jobs, you'll see right away that almost no one, unless it's like retail, restaurants, maybe working in like a cafe, like all of those kind of more like typically part-time and hourly jobs, pretty much anything that isn't that requires some type of education in order to even, like, get your resume read. And again, I saw a lot of resumes discarded when I was watching people go through hiring processes that were actually great resumes and were good candidates, but they didn't have a degree. They hadn't invested the time and unfortunately the money in going to school, and so they were disregarded. And whether or not that's fair, like I'm not trying to argue for or against that right now. My point is just that the reality is you do really need a degree to get your foot in the door for a lot of positions. So take heart in that your college degree is important. It will help you. Don't stress about that. If you are graduating from high school and you're watching this video, just know that you totally don't have to go to college. There's plenty of jobs that you can get that don't require a college degree. Not trying to scare anybody into going to school, especially if you don't know what you want to do yet. Like that's not a big deal. But yeah, so I would just say like I get that fear. It is really scary to realize that people aren't just going to immediately hire you based on the fact that you have a degree, because there's also so many people that have degrees today, which is great. It's wonderful to work in an educated workforce, but it's also terrifying because it means that the competition's a little bit steeper. So yeah, my number one piece of advice for that would just be to keep your chin up when people won't hire you right away because they want you to have more experience. You get that feedback a lot. I think no matter what field you're trying to go into, people will tell you like you need more experience. So don't be afraid to like just take a job that is going to help you make ends meet and then do internships where you can, or maybe do a personal project where you can, that like just like exhibits your skill in something. I think especially if you're somebody who is creative and you're trying to get a job in the creative realm, it can be really helpful to kind of initiate your own project, whether that's in film or photography or writing or whatever it is, just to show employers that you have that kind of spark to start something like that. So yeah, I hope that helps people a little bit. But that's kind of a good segue into talking about the things that I wish people had told me when I first graduated from school. So the number one thing that I wish someone had said to me when I graduated was, it's okay if you don't know all of the answers yet. Because everyone is so excited for you to be graduating that everybody wants to know what your next move is, what your plans are, what are your goals, what are your dreams. And I legitimately think that people just ask those things because they want to be a piece of that. They're so excited for you that they want to share in your dreams and continue encouraging you to follow your dreams now that you're graduating. And it's like this big, exciting event, which is awesome. But it's also terrifying because then as you have people who are kind of investing in and sharing this dream with you, it starts to kind of feel like if your dream changes or if your dream doesn't work out, or if maybe you just made up that dream on a whim and you don't actually have a dream at all, that you're going to be letting all of those people down. That was really how I felt at graduation, and so I just want to say, like, that's how everyone is feeling. So even if you think that you know exactly what you want to do with your life, and then you get like 6 months down the road or 2 years down the road or 10 years down the road, whatever it is, and you realize that your life plan has changed, like, that's okay. And just know that, like, one thing that I've learned from the people in my life is that people just want to see you succeed, in the sense that they want to see you be happy and they want to see you living and loving your life. So like if somebody loves you, they're not going to care if you decide to pursue a different dream, right? Like they want to see you happy. So don't put that extra stress of other people's thoughts and expectations about your dreams on yourself. Just keep it chill, just focus on your dreams. That's really the piece that matters right now. And it's even okay if you don't know what your dreams are. There are a lot of people who graduate from school and have no idea what they want to go into. So I would just say, like, if you're in that position, or if you feel like you're not able to go into what you want to do like right now, that's okay. Just find something that you love to do and do it, whether you're going to get paid for it or not. So a great example is, I talked about how I went to school as an English major, thought that I was going to graduate and immediately get a job at a publishing company, and then that wasn't the reality. And for me, like, I did go into some creative and communication based jobs, and I actually didn't like them the way that I expected to. And so I kind of did a 180 on my career path choice and went into a job where a lot of my day is spent doing just a lot of like really basic financial reporting and a lot of communication with banks and lenders and different folks, and I actually really, really love it. But I still felt a need to have a creative outlet because I wasn't really getting that through work anymore. And so then that was what made me decide to start this YouTube channel. Was I wanted to just have a place to come and be creative and create some kind of content on my own. And what's fun about this is that nobody is sitting on the other side of the table deciding what content I produce. It's just me. I get to pick. And then I also have time and kind of creativity left over at the end of the day to like write, or I really like writing kind of short little micro blog posts on Instagram, and just kind of, yeah, like I don't really know where those projects are going to go yet, or even I don't know really where this channel is going to go yet, but I just know it's really fun to have my own creative time and outlets that are not job related. And that was what worked for me. But that was completely different from what I expected when I graduated, which was that I was going to have a job that was creative and I was going to use all my creativity at work every day. And I also thought that I wanted to live in a big city and work for a really big company and like have this very illustrious, prestigious job. And then I discovered that wasn't what I wanted. And maybe it is what you want. Maybe you'll go do those things and you'll love them. And that's awesome. I know I have a lot of friends who've done that, who've come from small towns or even who grew up in cities, and then they went on to have the big fancy job in the city and they love it. So I think that's one of the other hard pieces of graduation, is that, like I said at the beginning of this video, different things happen for different people at different times, and it's hard sometimes to not take that as like a judgment on yourself. For example, like I had friends who left college, had a job lined up like months before they even graduated, and then just went into that job, killed it, were amazing at it, and have already been promoted at their current companies and just are like killing it on the career side of things. And it took me a while to figure out what I wanted to do with my career. And so right now, like, I'm still in like a very beginning entry level position, but that's because I restarted my career journey several times before I settled on this one. And I think then, like, vice versa, the other thing can happen where maybe you land the job and you're doing really well on the career side of things, but then maybe your relationship falls apart, or you don't have a relationship to begin with, and then you see people start to get engaged or maybe start to have kids or whatever it is. It's hard not to compare yourself and feel like you're like behind in some area of your life because you see your friends and loved ones progressing in this way that you maybe aren't yet. So I would say the second biggest thing that I wish someone had told me at graduation is just that it's okay to do things at your own pace. It really just doesn't matter. If you leave school and maybe you've never had a job before, maybe college was your primary focus, maybe your college costs were covered by your parents, maybe they were covered by a scholarship, maybe you played sports in college and you didn't have time to work, whatever it is, maybe you get out of school and you have zero job experience and you really need to just get a job at Starbucks or the local deli or whatever it is to like make ends meet and just get some work experience while you figure out what you want to do with another piece of your life. And that isn't to say that people who work at Starbucks and delis don't have their life figured out. It's just to say that, like, I think that society kind of puts this expectation, especially on graduates, of that, like, once you have your degree, you can't have jobs that people can hold without degrees because then it's a waste of your degree. And I hate that. It's so, so dumb because it goes both ways. A, working at Starbucks and restaurants and delis and all that kind of stuff is hard work. Just because you don't have a degree when you're doing it doesn't mean you aren't hustling your butt off. So I don't like that judgment. And then second of all, it doesn't matter if you have a degree and you decide that you want to be a waitress for the rest of your life. Maybe you really love being a waitress. What matters is that you do something that you love to do, or that you're working towards doing something that you love to do. So that's what I mean about just not letting other people's judgments or expectations of your degree and your career path get in the way of you just enjoying this time where you have an open slate in front of you. And so I would just say, like, don't be afraid to jump in and just start on your life. Even if you don't know if you'll love something, like, you'll never know until you try. So maybe, like, I had the opportunity to go into a sales role as my very first job after college. Hated it. Hated it so much. But it was an awesome experience because now I just know that I will never take a sales job again because I'm so bad at it and I hate it so, so much. And so now I just know that, whenever I'm going through job searches, anything that has anything to do with sales, it's not for me. But I never would have known that if I hadn't just jumped in and started that job. So my parting thoughts to you are this. Graduation should be one of the most exciting times of your life. Let it be exciting. Just enjoy the magic that is embarking on a brand new chapter of life. But it's also okay to be scared, and just know that everyone else is feeling scared and anxious about embarking on this new chapter as well. And don't let your storyline get compared to other people's in a way that makes you feel inadequate. Like, just write your story, own who you are, encourage other people in their story, and just go for it. I wish that I just would have been able to let go of a lot of the anxiety that came with graduation, because the honest truth is that it has been a crazy past couple of years, but it has been so fun, and I have learned so much about myself, and I know that all of you guys are going to experience that too. So just, as corny as it sounds, find the joy in the journey. Just go for it. Go out there. Do what you love. And then the worst thing that happens is you realize that you're on a path in life that you really don't love, and you turn around. Maybe you go back to square one. Maybe you take a right turn and go do something else. Who knows? Who knows where life is going to lead you? But that's the beauty of it, is that you don't know where life is going to take you. So you might as well just go where your heart is calling you. And then if you get called in a different direction, embrace that too. Okay, guys, very last thing is, remember, if you want to send me your resume, you can. I'm going to include my email in the description down below. I'd love to hear from you guys. And even if you don't need resume tips, or maybe you don't have graduation questions, but you just want to vent about graduation or going through a big life change, like, I would love to hear from you. So feel free to reach out to me. And then last but not least, if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you have grads in your life, or you are a graduate yourself, please make sure to share this video so that it can reach other people who maybe are going through the same thing. I know that people sharing their graduation stories on social media really helped me through my period of anxiety around graduation. So my hope in making this video is that it's going to pay it forward a little bit, and maybe something that I talked about today will resonate with people who are going through the same things. So yeah, that's it for episode 3. Thanks so much for watching.